A month ago, I moved back into my childhood home. I was 35 and recently widowed. I thought it would help to sort through my mother's things with my golden retriever, Max. The house was old and dusty, filled with memories that made me feel both comforted and sad. One Wednesday, I decided to go through some old photographs. They lay scattered on the coffee table. I barely glanced at Max, who watched me intently with his big brown eyes. Suddenly, he perked up and looked toward the corner of the living room, his ears pricked. I shook it off. Maybe he heard a sound. I focused on the faded pictures instead. Then it happened again. Max began barking and wagging his tail at the empty corner. I chuckled to myself, thinking, dogs have wild imaginations. Still, a cold shiver crawled up my spine. It was almost like the room whispered to me, but I ignored it and returned to the photos. Days passed as I sorted through more of my mother's belongings. Strange things started happening. I thought I heard faint laughter when I walked past the living room, but I brushed it aside. Who wouldn't jump at shadows after everything I'd been through? Yet there was Max, running in circles and staring into that same empty corner. My heart started racing. I didn't want to admit it out loud, but I was scared. It felt too real to be just my imagination. Sometimes I thought I saw movement, and I could almost hear whispers. They curled around my heart, mixing comfort with fear. It was unsettling. Then I noticed something even stranger. My mother's old belongings began to rearrange themselves. One morning, I found her favorite blanket folded neatly on the couch. I knew I hadn't touched it. Maybe Max had? But deep down, I felt a different presence enveloping the room. I stood there, frozen. The living room had memories of laughter and warmth, but now those feelings felt twisted. Was it my mom's spirit? Was she trying to say something to me? I didn't know what to think, but my gut told me something was off. One afternoon, I heard a soft giggle. It was right behind me. I turned slowly, but nothing was there. Just Max, gazing at that empty space with pure delight. It made my skin crawl and sent chills down my back. Was my mom really here? I had questions, but I was scared to find the answers. Everything felt blurred, the warmth of those memories tangled with dread. I wanted to run out of the house, but I couldn't leave Max behind. Max trotted over to the corner and wagged his tail harder. I watched him, and my anxiety twisted into something darker. I wanted to shout for my mother to come back, but I hesitated, afraid of what might answer. It all felt wrong, yet part of me craved understanding. Then the giggle came again, more distinct. The sound echoed softly against the walls, as though it came from within the house itself. My breath hitched in my throat. Max leaned closer, as if he could see something I couldn't. Did I really want to know what was happening? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was teetering on the edge of something I didn't understand. I glanced at Max, who was now sniffing around that same corner. My skin prickled with uncertainty. It was getting late, and the shadows deepened, turning the familiar living room into something foreign, unnerving. "Let's go outside, buddy," I said, forcing a smile. I needed fresh air, something to clear my head. Maybe the sunlight could chase away the strange happenings in this house. But as I reached for the door, I heard it again. The laughter, clearer this time, echoing sweetly through the air. It felt almost familiar, like a forgotten memory suddenly resurfacing. My heart raced, but I hesitated, torn between leaving and seeking the source of the sound. "Max, did you hear that?" I whispered, although I wanted to shout. I took a deep breath and turned back to face the room. "Mom?" The words slipped out, tinged with longing. I half expected her to materialize before me, her comforting smile easing my fears. Max barked excitedly, pulling me back to that corner, his tail wagging with frenetic energy. I wrestled with doubts. Was it really her or something else? My gut told me to stay alert. That's when I saw it, something glinting near the base of the fireplace. My heart skipped a beat. I stepped closer, trying to peer through the darkness, half expecting it to disappear like a shadow. It was a small, heart-shaped locket that I recognized immediately. It belonged to my mother. How did it end up there? I hadn't seen it in years. My hands trembled as I picked it up, brushing off dust that had settled on its surface. As I opened it, the laughter faded, leaving silence in its wake. Inside were two tiny pictures, one of my mother as a child, and the other, a photo of me at my 5th birthday party, cake smeared on my face, surrounded by balloons. Memories flooded back, but they felt like they belonged to someone else. I wasn't sure how long I stood there, lost in thought, but suddenly the air shifted. A cold breeze swept through the room, wrapping around me like an unwelcome embrace. I glanced at Max, who was no longer playful. Instead, he stood rigid, watching the corner with unwavering focus. A knot formed in my stomach. I felt a presence, the weight of something alive pressing against me, wantingly. A flickering light captured my attention as the overhead bulb began to flicker. The whispering returned, louder, clearer, almost pleading. "Leave!" The command rang out, piercing the silence and echoing off the walls. I stumbled back, the locket slipping from my shaky fingers, clattering against the floor. Max growled softly, moving in front of me as if to protect me. I could feel my blood turn to ice. I wanted to escape, to flee that haunted space, but my feet felt rooted. Then, everything went dark. I stumbled forward, desperate to regain my balance. The darkness felt heavy, like a thick fog smothering me. I called out, "Max?" My voice trembled, swallowed by the void. I felt the coolness of the floor beneath my hands, the base of the fireplace rough against my palms. "Max!" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. I had to find him. I couldn't be alone in this blackness. Suddenly, a faint glimmer broke through the dark. A small beam of light flickered in the corner, like a dying star. I crawled toward it, feeling my way cautiously. Just as I reached the spot, the light expanded, illuminating the locket I had dropped. It lay there, but next to it was another object. I squinted in the new light. It was a photograph, slightly crumpled, but recognizable. My breath caught. It was my mother again, but this time she wasn't alone. She was holding a baby. I felt a chill run through me. The picture wasn't just of my mother. It was the same outfit I wore on my birthday, the very day from the photo in the locket. "What is happening?" I whispered, a wave of confusion crashing over me. Then I felt it. A soft tug at my jeans, gentle but insistent. I looked down to see Max, his tail wagging, eyes bright, as if he could see something I couldn't. He barked playfully, darting off toward the shadowy corner, encouraging me to follow. As I stood, the room felt alive again, but the light flickered again, dimming. I hesitated, wanting to chase after him, but gripped by dread. Just moments ago, that same corner felt menacing. "Wait, buddy!" I called, my heart racing as I rushed after him. As I stepped closer, the flickering intensified. I reached for the switch, but it didn't respond. Instead, Max prowled back and forth, barking excitedly, as though he could sense a presence. My fear clashed with curiosity, propelling me toward the corner. In that split moment, the laughter returned, like a shimmering echo of joy mixed with sadness. I pressed myself against the wall, forcing my breath slow. The light snuffed out, plunging us back into a stifling darkness. Then I heard a voice, soft and melodic. "Come play with us." I froze, paralyzed by a mix of instinctual fear and an overwhelming desire to understand. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I wanted to turn away, to flee again. But Max continued to bark, oblivious, urging me to stay. "Who?" I croaked, the word barely escaping my lips. In response, a shimmering figure flickered at the edge of my sight, just beyond the reach of Max's playfulness. My heart thundered. I stumbled backward, my mind racing. I found myself thinking of the tales my mother used to tell about her childhood, about the friends she lost too soon. Before I could consider further, the voice sang again, slightly louder this time. "Come find us." And before I could catch my breath, the silence shattered. The walls creaked and groaned as something moved, rising just behind me. I felt the warm breath against my neck. I didn't wait to look. I ran, knowing somewhere deep down that this wasn't over. Something was here, and I had to find out what it wanted. I bolted down the hallway, the sound of Max's paws pattering behind me. The darkness pressed in, but the adrenaline coursing through my veins pushed me forward. I could still hear that eerie laughter ringing in my ears like an old childhood song. It felt wrong. It felt alive. "Max, stop!" I shouted, but he was too happy to heed my command. He darted around corners, tail wagging, as if this was some sort of game. I stumbled behind him, struggling to keep my footing in the dimness. The whole house seemed to shift, walls bending away from me like shadows in retreat. I reached the living room, hoping the light switch might somehow function. My fingers fumbled over the switch, but nothing happened. Panic surged again as I looked around. The room was just as dark as the hallway. Suddenly, Max stopped, nose to the ground, sniffing intently. I could barely make out the old couch and the coffee table, but Max was focused on something in the corner. My breath quickened as I approached. Was there something else in here? Something I couldn't see, but he could? "Max, what is it?" I whispered, but he didn't respond. Instead, he growled low in his throat, a sound I had never heard from him before. "What's wrong, buddy?" The air grew colder, sending shivers down my spine. My pulse pounded in my ears. And then that voice again. "Join us. Come play." It was different this time. There was a hint of malice lurking beneath the melody. I could hardly breathe. Just as I turned to back away, I caught a glimpse of movement, a flicker of that same shimmering figure just beyond the shadows. It lifted an arm, fingers beckoning me closer. My heart raced. Whatever it was trying to entice me. "Max!" I cried out, my panic rising. But he was barking wildly now, fur bristling, as the lights above us flickered once more, casting erratic shadows that danced across the walls. In the brief flashes of brightness, I could see it. A child's face, familiar and yet distorted, peering at me from behind the light. I stumbled backward, my foot snagging on the edge of the rug. I fell hard, landing against the cold floor, the wind knocked out of me. The laughter grew louder, echoing all around, and in that moment I understood. This wasn't a game. "Stay away!" I yelled, scrambling to my feet. But the figure was already advancing, the child's face turning into something I couldn't recognize, something horrible. "No!" I shouted, instinctively grabbing Max and dragging him back. The lights flickered again, and suddenly the room filled with a harsh brightness. The figure froze mid-step, and for the first time I caught a clear look at it. It wasn't just anyone. It was me, as a child, radiant and joyful as I held a doll. But then something shifted, the smile fading, morphing into that of sorrow. "Who are you?" I stammered, my voice shaky. But then, just as quickly as it appeared, the light extinguished, plunging us once again into darkness. I felt the pull of dread settle in my stomach. I needed to get out. I didn't understand what was happening, but I knew one thing. I couldn't face whatever that was alone. "Let's go, Max," I urged, feeling the warmth of his fur against my leg. He nudged me forward, encouraging me to run. But as I turned toward the exit, a new sound caught my attention. The soft, persistent whispering began again, flowing around me like a cold breeze. "Come, play with us." I didn't know where to go or if I could escape, but I couldn't let this entity keep me in its grasp. I needed answers, and I couldn't turn back. Not now. Not when I was so close to uncovering the truth. I stumbled toward the front door, my heart pounding in my chest. The whispering swirled around me, wrapping around my thoughts like a fog. "Come, play with us." The voice, sickly sweet, beckoned with the familiarity of childhood games, but I knew beneath that charm lay something much darker. Max tugged at his leash, urging me to move faster. His energy fueled my resolve as I pushed open the door, the creaking hinges sounding like a warning. Outside, the night air wrapped around me like a shroud. I took a deep breath, letting it fill my lungs, but the fear still clung to me. "Where do we go now?" I muttered, glancing back at the house. The windows loomed like dark eyes, silently watching my every move. All I wanted was to escape, but deep down, I knew that wasn't going to make this go away. I led Max away from the house, down the path, my mind racing with thoughts I couldn't process. I had to confront whatever had happened. Something from my childhood was lingering, refusing to let me go. "It must be connected to Mom," I said aloud, as if saying it made it more real. My mother had always told stories about spirits, wonderful tales that gradually turned sinister as I got older. But now, everything felt different. I heard her voice again, clearer this time, mixing with the whispers. "Find me." "What do you want?" I shouted into the darkness, clenching my fists. I felt foolish yelling at nothing, but fear pushed me to confront the thing that was tormenting me. Max whined, glancing back toward the house. He seemed to sense the rising tension, and it made me wonder, could he see them too? "Do you hear that?" I kneeled next to him, searching his eyes for understanding. But he only barked, head tilting towards the shadows lining the trees. As we moved further away, I finally felt a sliver of control return. I had to learn what was going on. With every step, 1,000 memories flooded back. Laughter, games, moments of joy I buried when everything changed. I couldn't let them taunt me anymore. I had to face them, to understand. And then, in a sudden shift, the air became thick and the whispering stopped. I glanced around, heart racing. "Max?" I whispered. Max stopped in his tracks, hackles raised. His growls returned, deep and threatening. I looked toward the darkness behind me and felt a jolt of electricity run through my veins. Something was there. Ahead of us, a flutter of light danced in the night. It flickered like fireflies, drawing me in. My instincts screamed at me to run away, but curiosity pushed me toward it. "Stay close, Max," I urged, taking a cautious step forward. What I saw next made my insides twist. A figure materialized from the light, a familiar silhouette. Not just any shape, but my mother, her face illuminated with soft warmth. "You came," she whispered, voice trembling like a breeze. Panic rose in my throat. "No, it can't be you." But the moment her lips turned up in a wistful smile, I felt something shift. I didn't know if it was a trick of the light or a cruel game being played on me, but I sensed her presence was real and right in front of me. Then, between us, the shadows lurched. "Come play," they echoed, and for a second I was paralyzed, torn between the past I longed for and the darkness that threatened to engulf me. I had to make a choice. I felt Max press against my side, emboldening me. I wouldn't let this spirit take me again. "Mom, I want to understand. I pleaded, desperation etching my voice. But just as the light began to brighten, the dark flickering figures surged, swirling around us, and everything went black. I woke up gasping, disoriented. My heart raced as I lay on the cold ground, the darkened trees towering above me like the monsters from my childhood nightmares. Max sat beside me, his warm body pressed against my leg. I blinked, struggling to remember what had just happened, but all that came was an echo of the whispers that had filled the air moments before I lost consciousness. "Max," I whispered, pushing myself up. The night was still, too still, as if the whole world held its breath. I could see the house in the distance, its windows reflecting the moonlight like hollow eyes. Panic gripped me. Had I really seen my mother? Was she really here, or was it just a trick of the light and my longing? "Let's go," I said, standing up and steadying myself. The fear clawed at my insides, but I couldn't let it win. I had to figure this out, to confront the shadows I had run from for so long. Max trotted ahead, sniffing the air, but I could sense he was on guard. I followed him, heart pounding as we approached the house. Each step felt heavy, as if I were walking through mud. I could feel dread seeping back into my bones like a chill in the night air. When we reached the door, I hesitated. Whispers flitted at the edges of my consciousness, like wings brushing against my mind. "Come play," a voice called, and I shivered. My fingers trembled as I reached for the doorknob. I had to know what was happening. With one hard turn, the door creaked open, revealing the dark interior. Shadows pooled in the corners, and the air carried a stale scent of dust, and something else, something sweetly oppressive. I stepped inside, every instinct screaming at me to turn back, but I pushed the fear aside. "Show me," I called. "Show me what you want." The silence that followed was deafening. I flicked the light switch, and the bathroom's fluorescent lights hummed to life, chasing some of the shadows away. But in the living room, it was still dark. Tremors ran through me as I approached. The space felt alive, pulsing with an energy I could barely comprehend. That's when I noticed it. On the coffee table, a small childhood toy sat. It was a worn-out stuffed animal, the very one my mother had used to keep me company during my darkest nights. I picked it up, the fabric soft beneath my fingers. Suddenly, I felt a rush of cold air that made my breath mist in front of me. A reflection caught my eye. I turned to see what was behind me, but there was no one there, just darkness. "What do you want?" I repeated, clutching the stuffed animal as if it were a lifeline. Then a low laugh rang out, childlike and innocent, but layered with something sinister. I turned around quickly, heart racing. "Max!" I shouted, fear rising in my throat like bile. But all I heard was silence, and the air thickened. The shadows began to pool around my feet, creeping closer. "Come play," they whispered again, their voices merging into a cacophony that made my vision blur. I had to escape. I ran toward the door, Max still outside, barking frantically. As I reached for the knob, the whispers grew louder, drowning out the sound of my heart. It felt like something was pulling at me, trying to drag me back. With one final desperate push, I swung the door open and stumbled out into the night. But the door slammed shut behind me, leaving me out in the dark. I turned, breathless, facing the house and the flickering shadows that danced behind the window. Then I realized, with a sickening twist in my stomach, this was only the beginning. I stood outside, the chill of the night biting at my skin. Max barked, pacing anxiously by the door, but I couldn't take my eyes off the house. Every window looked like a dark eye watching me. "What do I do now?" I mumbled to myself. The stuffed animal weighed heavy in my hands. Then I saw it, a flicker of movement in the living room. My heart raced as a shadow darted past the window, so quick I almost thought it was my imagination. But Max's growl confirmed it. Something was inside. "Stay close, boy," I whispered. I moved tentatively back toward the door, my pulse thrumming in my ears. The latch was cold as I fumbled to turn it, but before I could test my courage, I stopped. A soft laugh floated out from the window, the same childlike sound I had heard before. It twisted through the air, and dread tightened my throat. "Come play," it sang, so sweetly innocent, but terrifying. I took a step back, my instinct urging me to run, but I felt rooted to the ground. "What do you want?" I shouted. The whispers had returned, echoing in my mind, coaxing and taunting. I clutched the stuffed animal tighter and forced myself to breathe. I needed answers. I couldn't keep pretending my past didn't matter. The memories of my mother, of the bedtime stories, of her laughter mixed with the shadows in front of me. "Max," I called again, hoping he could sense my mounting fear. He barked once, then stepped toward the door. My stomach knotted. I pushed the door again, but it felt stuck. What the? That's when I noticed a flicker of light spilling from the living room windows. It wasn't the moon, but a warm glow, almost inviting. Panic and curiosity battled inside me. I had to know. Summoning courage I didn't feel, I yanked harder at the door, and it finally creaked open again. I stepped inside. The air was thick, with an almost electric charge swirling around me. As I moved into the living room, the familiar shapes were lost in a veil of deep shadows. I spotted the light coming from the far corner, the gleam beckoning me forward. Max stood firm at the threshold, still barking, his instincts warning him of the danger that I couldn't grasp yet. "Max, come," I whispered desperately, but my voice felt small in the vast emptiness of the house. I took another step, heart pounding, as the laughter returned, more intense this time. "Come play." With a sudden rush, the lights flickered violently before illuminating the room completely. I gasped. Objects were strewn about, toys and furniture I had not touched in years. But there, in the center of it all, was a small figure, a child, or what appeared to be one, hunched over, playing with my stuffed animal on the floor. "Mom?" I whispered, but the child didn't turn. It was too small, too shrouded in shadow to be anything other than a creation of my fears. Whispers formed behind me, growing louder and more insistent. Suddenly, the flickering lights went out again, plunging me into darkness. "Max!" I called, but my voice sounded lost. The chill returned tenfold, and an icy presence brushed against my skin. I fumbled for the wall, searching for the light switch, my fingers trembling as I felt the sudden weight of eyes watching me. Then, everything went dark. The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating. I felt my way along the wall, panic rising with every step. "Max!" I called again, my voice shaky. I could hear him whimpering somewhere close. The chill wrapped around me like a cloak, stinging my skin. Just when my nerves felt like they might snap, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the room in that warm glow from before. My breath caught. The child was gone. The stuffed animal lay in the same spot on the floor, but no sign of the figure remained. I turned quickly, searching for Max. He stood just inside the doorway, staring at something behind me, his low growl echoing eerily in the quiet. "What is it, boy?" I was terrified to look, but I had to know. I took a deep breath and turned slowly. My heart dropped. The shadows in the corner seemed to shift, coiling together like thick smoke. And then I saw it. A small figure, slightly transparent, barely illuminated by the flickering light. "Who are you?" I stammered. The figure was childlike, but there was something unnerving about it. The child didn't move, just stood there, watching me with wide, dark eyes that felt like they could see right through me. "Come play," it whispered again, the voice sweet but hollow. It reached out a tiny hand, and my instincts screamed at me to run. I hesitated, rooted in fear. "I don't want to play," I shouted, a wave of defiance crumbling my dread. The child's expression shifted. The innocent playfulness melted away, replaced with something darker. "You have to play," it insisted, and I could hear the edges of a threat hidden in its sweet voice. "Mom," I tried again, desperate for a sign that this was all a mistake. But in my heart, I knew my mother was gone. I was alone, stuck in this haunting place with whatever this was. Suddenly, the lights flickered more violently, and just as quickly as they had returned, they went out again, plunging me back into darkness. I felt cold hands brush past my arms, a faint giggle echoing around me, ringing with menace. "Max!" I yelled in a panic, my voice cracking. I fumbled forward, reaching blindly, feeling for him. Thankfully, he nudged against my leg. I grabbed his collar in relief, holding onto him like a lifeline. "Let's get out of here," I urged. But the house felt alive, a pulse running through the walls, resisting my exit. It felt like I was fighting against a current as I moved towards the door, but it was no use. The door was stuck, just like before, refusing to budge. "Why won't you let me go?" I shouted into the emptiness, my heart racing. The laughter bubbled up again, sinister, echoing in the vast, dark corners. I felt the chill closing in around me, making it hard to breathe. Then everything changed. A voice, not the child's, pierced through the shadows. "You aren't supposed to leave," it rumbled, harsh and low. I turned, a fresh wave of terror washing over me. Someone, or something, was in the house with me. I felt paralyzed, eyes wide, as the voice echoed in the stillness. My heart raced while the shadows shimmered ominously around me. I twisted my head in every direction, searching for the source, knowing full well that I didn't want to find it. Max growled louder, his low, rumbling warning filling the space. "Who's there?" I tried to sound brave, but my voice quaked. Silence fell again, thick and oppressive. There was no response. Then the walls began to shift slightly, like they were breathing. I pressed back, putting distance between myself and the dark corners, holding Max's collar tightly in my hands. Whatever presence lurked in that house was waiting, watching. Maybe if I go back, I thought, flashing back to the kitchen. The lights in there had flickered too. I moved, inching slowly towards the door that led to the hallway. The weight of the air felt heavier with each step. The chill seeped into my bones, and I could feel sweat trickling down my back. "Stay close, Max," I whispered. He nudged against my leg again, his warmth reassuring amid the cold. My pulse quickened as I stepped into the dim hallway. I turned, straining my ears for any sounds beyond Max's breathing. The house creaked like it wanted to say something. I kept moving toward the kitchen, desperate to feel any semblance of familiarity. The door to the living room was ajar, and I paused there for a brief moment. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement behind the couch, a shadow flitting just out of my vision. My breath hitched in my throat. What now? I was torn between my instincts to escape and the compulsion to confront what was tormenting me. "Mom?" I called again, hoping for a sign, but all I received was silence. I pushed the door further open, peeking into the living room. The dim light struggled against the gathering shadows, making the space seem even more foreign. As I stepped in, I caught a glimpse of my mother's stuffed bear, the faded fabric trapped in a corner. Paralysis washed over me. It felt like a piece of her lingered with that toy, waiting. "No, I won't let it take you," I muttered, but the doubt gnawed at me relentlessly. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from the back of the room. I whirled around, heart racing as I faced the source. A tall, dark figure standing just outside the kitchen doorway. It blocked the light from spilling into the room completely. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice breaking. The figure stood there, unmoving, but I could feel the energy shift, a disturbance in the air, as if it was considering my question. Instead of answering, it stepped forward, into the dim light. My breath caught in my throat. It was like looking at a ghostly reflection, but not in the way I expected. This figure bore my mother's face, but it was twisted in a way that sent shivers down my spine. "You left me," it whispered, voice dripping with sorrow and accusation. Any warmth I found before vanished, replaced by icy terror. Before I could answer, Max barked fiercely, lunging toward the apparition. "No!" I cried, but it was too late. It felt as if an unseen force was pushing me back, throwing me against the wall, as the room twisted around me. This wasn't just a house. The shadows moved, swirling into something alive. And I realized then, I wasn't just trapped. I was part of this game. I stumbled against the wall, gasping for breath as the energy in the room crackled. A subject in some twisted play, I was an unwilling pawn, caught in a web woven by my childhood memories and the shadows haunting my mother's house. Max barked fiercely, but the sound seemed to dissolve against the chaos around us. "Let her go!" I shouted, panic lacing my voice. The figure that resembled my mother stepped closer, her features contorting in a way that felt deeply unnatural. The sadness in her eyes flickered as if she were fighting against something buried within her. "You don't understand," she whispered, darkness lacing her tone. "You have to join us." A skittish laugh erupted from the corners of the room, high-pitched and childlike, mingling with a chorus of voices that whispered for my attention, tugging at my heartstrings. I stumbled back, eyes darting around, searching for an escape, but finding only oppressive silence. The walls closed in, the atmosphere thick with all the stories held within. Each shadow, each flicker of light, a glimpse into the tale of loss and longing. "No!" I yelled, bruised resolve pushing back against the tide of fear threatening to swallow me whole. "You're not her!" I picked the stuffed animal up, holding it between myself and the apparition. It felt hot in my hands, a remnant of all that was once safe and warm before everything changed. The reaction was immediate. The shadowy figure jerked back, eyes narrowing into slits. "You think you'll win by holding on to that," she spat, voice both familiar and terrifyingly foreign. "You can't outrun your past." I felt the pressure of dread suffocating me. The laughter escalated, encircling me like a maelstrom. "Join us! Come play!" they echoed, the mischievous glee dancing sinisterly around my ears. "I refuse," I said, my voice rising, trembling with anger and defiance. I had lost too much already. I could feel Max at my side, pulling me back from the brink. Whatever this thing was, it couldn't have my spirit. Not again. But even as I said those words, doubt crept in. What if this was all that was left of my mother? What if she had been trapped, forever changed by grief, yearning for a connection? "No matter what I lost, I have to move forward," I whispered fiercely, fighting against the disorienting pull of childhood impressions. "I can't stay." Suddenly, the darkness cracked. a fissure darting through the shadows, like the sound of breaking glass. The figure twitched, her face shifting between recognition and rage. I took a step back as the shadows writhed in response. And in that moment of uncertainty, a bright ray of light burst through, blindingly brilliant. It struck the figure, causing her to dissolve into whispers. I felt my surroundings pull backward, almost like a receding tide, as the brightness flared. "Max!" I called out, and he bolted toward me, instinctively leaping against my legs as the light radiated around us. The laughter fell to silence, the pull of the darkness weakened. The light enveloped us, lifting us, pulling me from the grasp of the energy that had tried to ensnare me. I stumbled back into the kitchen doorway, and then tumbled out into the night. I collapsed outside, gasping as Max nudged against me, his fur warm and reassuring. "We did it," I breathed heavily, staring back at the house. But the darkness still lingered, peeling back like a bad memory, whispering promises I knew I wouldn't uncover. I could still hear fragments of laughter bouncing off the walls. Had I really escaped? I looked at Max, who appeared unsettled but remained alert. "What now?" I murmured, my voice trembling with uncertainty. I stood, still shaken, but less tethered to fear. There was a long road ahead. What I encountered within those walls would always remain, half-shadowed in my mind, memories of both love and loss. But I finally recognized something as well. My past didn't define my future. Walking away, I glanced back at the old house one last time. The windows still reflected the moonlight, capturing a glimmer of something ineffable. The whispers faded into the night, but something in my heart lingered. Was it a blessing or a curse? I wouldn't know for certain. As Max and I made our way down the gravel driveway, a cool breeze brushed past, swirling the leaves around us. I moved forward toward the unknown, unsure of what lay ahead, but resolute in my decision to face whatever came. I wouldn't betray my memories, but I wouldn't let them haunt me either. In the silence that followed, I felt the weight of unresolved questions and lingering shadows. Sometimes the past would call to me, but I was ready to meet it on my own terms. I still think about the laughter sometimes, and I can't help but wonder what remains in that old house. But I've never been back. It changed how I see things, a reminder of the dance between light and dark that holds the stories of our lives.